Good day, dear viewers. This is Ruslan Belov welcoming you. Before we begin, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write in the comments what city you're watching from. So, my friends, once again, remarkable updates are coming in from the front line. Just yesterday, we analyzed in detail the assault on Kupyansk and how several hundred Ukrainian soldiers ended up effectively trapped. We may well return to that topic later today, but I want to start this report from an entirely different sector, the area of responsibility of the Vostok East Group. In this zone, Russian units are advancing steadily, and notably at a pace higher than the average, along the entire front. In the past few days, the troops have expanded the controlled area by more than 4.5 kilometers in width, reaching the Yancha River. For those unfamiliar with the area, it's important to note this is the last major Ukrainian defensive line shielding the city of Huliai-Pol from the north and northeast. The core of this defensive system is the village of Uspenivka and the surrounding rural agglomeration, which includes 11 settlements. It forms a fortified belt on which the northern flank around Huliai-Pol depends. If Russian forces manage to breach this line and crack the defense, not only the villages, but the city itself will fall under direct threat. Now, let's go over the details of the latest advance. From the direction of Novonikolayivka, Russian troops moved 2 kilometers and 300 meters along the highway and reached the bridge over the Yancha River. On the opposite bank lies Uspenivka, the key stronghold anchoring the entire defensive arc. As expected, the bridge was blown up by Ukrainian forces, but the river itself does not pose an insurmountable obstacle. Its depth and width allow it to be crossed if necessary, though that has not yet been attempted. In addition to reaching the river, Russian forces took control of the village of Novovasilivsky, located directly on the riverbank. The settlement is small, and Ukrainian troops were unable to defend it, retreating after brief resistance. Moreover, Russian units have reached the outskirts of Novonikolayivka, though again they face the Yancha River, which must be crossed to begin the assault. Summing up, an area of about 6.5 square kilometers has been secured, the village of Novovasilivsky liberated, and access gained to the approaches of 2 key settlements, Uspenivka and Novonikolayivka. The battle for Uspenivka will undoubtedly become the central episode of the coming days. If we look slightly north, we find the village of Novohrihorivka, where, according to recent reports, the Ukrainian defense has essentially collapsed. For over a week, Ukrainian units clung to their positions, putting up fierce resistance, but ultimately had to retreat. We are now awaiting objective control footage from the settlement, which may be released later today. The most important thing is that Russian troops are not merely holding their ground. They are genuinely advancing. Yes, the cost is high and losses are inevitable, but progress continues. Across the Zaporizhia region, where the Vostok Group operates, evacuation teams are actively working to extract the wounded and recover the fallen. Let's move on to the neighboring axis. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, there have been no major updates yet, though Russian troops are attempting to break through toward Vishnev. This settlement is now seen as a top priority objective. Taking it would allow Russian forces to cut the strategic Pokrovsky-Huliai-Pol highway completely. The Ukrainian side is counterattacking, launching strikes on Novoselivka and even sending sabotage and reconnaissance groups toward Yanvarske. Back when Novoselivka first came under Russian control, it was already noted that the nearby forest belt must be cleared for the position to be secure. As long as that area remains under Ukrainian control, the enemy will continue staging raids, ambushes, and counterattacks, which is exactly what's happening now. Therefore, although this sector is marked in red on many maps, in reality it remains a grey zone, where both sides are active. Until the forest and northern approaches are completely cleared, this line will remain unstable. Moving further, excellent progress has also been recorded on the approaches to Mirnohrad. Russian units have advanced both from the east and north of Krasny Lyman. Over the past day, the front moved forward by roughly 1.5 kilometers, and troops have reached the railway line, where fighting is now taking place for Central Station. Inside Mirnohrad itself, the advance continues along Shossena Street, about 650 meters deep into the urban area. This part of the city, according to the map, is an industrial zone adjacent to the mining district. Further south, Russian forces have moved forward by more than 2 kilometers, reaching the outskirts of Promin, with just about 300 meters left to the settlement. In response, Ukrainian forces launched a counterattack and managed to push Russian units back about 1 kilometer near Novohorodivka, but were soon repelled. Russian troops regained their positions and forced the enemy 1.2 kilometers away from Nikolaivka. As of now, only about 800 meters separate Russian forces from the southern outskirts of Mirnohrad. Essentially, the northern part of Mirnohrad is already under Russian control, and the next phase will be the full-scale urban assault. There's almost no open ground left for maneuver outside the city. The fighting is concentrated around Balaban, Moskovsky, Promin, and Suky Yar, where extremely fierce battles continue. On the map, it might look simple, just close the gap and finish the encirclement. But in reality, every meter is being fought for at a tremendous cost. The capture of Rodinska or an advance to Hryshine could become the decisive factor here. Both directions remain difficult, but in the Rodinska area, there's been visible progress. Over the past 24 hours, Russian units advanced 550 meters along Kantamirova Street in Krasny Lyman, reaching the outskirts of Rodinske. The two settlements are practically merged on the map. Their boundary runs along Zarekna Street. North of Rodinske, troops also secured the railway junction, leaving the city nearly in a semicircle of encirclement. If the current pace continues, Rodinsky could be taken by the end of the month, or at the very least before the end of the autumn campaign. Its fall would deliver a serious blow to Ukrainian forces and sharply worsen their situation in the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad cluster. It's quite possible that this event will become the turning point, paving the way for the capture of both cities. Next, let's move to the Kostiantynivka direction. Here, Russian troops have advanced 1.6 kilometers along the Nelepivka-Kostiantynivka highway. Meanwhile, on the Lyman sector, a large pocket was effectively closed, with an advance of 3.7 kilometers. In total, over the past day, Russian forces have brought more than 30 square kilometers of territory under control. A truly impressive result, especially considering the difficult weather conditions and the constant Ukrainian counterattacks. In the Kostiantynivka area, Russian forces had maintained a prolonged operational pause. After entering the Kostiantynivka-Daka district on the southeastern outskirts, the advance temporarily stopped. According to available information, Russian troops used this time to concentrate reserves and form a strike grouping, building up the critical mass of manpower and equipment required for a new assault. It appears that this build-up was completed only a few days ago, and now a fresh phase of offensive operations has begun, aimed at entering the city of Kostiantynivka, or at least reaching its urban boundary. Today, reports confirmed that Russian forces have improved their positions northeast of Yablunivka. As a result, a dense network of Ukrainian fortifications in this area has fallen into Russian hands. Furthermore, according to multiple sources, the village of Kleban-Beek has been fully captured, meaning Ukrainian forces have lost their bridgehead south of the Kleban-Beek reservoir. Updated field data also indicates that the Russian army has advanced across several directions, seizing a number of trenches, dugouts, and fortified positions. At this moment, heavy fighting is underway for the villages of Ivanopilia and Pleshcheyevka, where Ukrainian troops are putting up fierce resistance but continue to lose ground. Over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian command attempted to stabilize the situation by redeploying tanks, IFVs, and other armored vehicles to the area. However, every piece of equipment entering this zone was instantly destroyed by Russian FPV drones, which maintain full dominance over the battlefield. As a result, the situation on this sector remains extremely tense and critical. In addition, numerous videos have surfaced from the outskirts of Kostiantynivka. They show Ukrainian forces urgently sending reinforcements or possibly evacuating personnel from the area. Yet any movement detected by Russian reconnaissance drones is immediately targeted and destroyed. Now let's turn to the situation near Siversk. Here, Russian forces have begun a massive artillery preparation, striking Ukrainian positions with all calibers available. One of the main targets is Sloviansk. the key logistical and military hub of Ukrainian troops along the Lyman-Siversk line. Throughout the past day, numerous explosions were recorded in this area. Several ammunition depots were destroyed, and secondary detonations were observed. Meanwhile, Russian troops continue their offensive towards Zvanivka, which forms the southern defensive line of Siversk. Their objective is to break through Ukrainian defenses from both the south and northeast, moving closer to the city itself. For now, it remains uncertain from which direction the main assault will come. From the south, the northeast, or possibly even the west. Fierce battles are also taking place for the village of Dronivka. In general, the area around Siversk and Lyman consists of many small villages and fortified positions. But the loss of even a single settlement could trigger a collapse of the entire defense line. If Zvanivka falls, the road to Siversk opens. If Dronivka is captured, the same will happen. Should Yampil or Drobyshev fall, the Lyman sector would be directly threatened. The battle has now reached a phase where every square kilometer matters. The operation has entered its decisive stage, in which each local engagement may determine the fate of the entire front. Let's move on to the Kupyansk direction, where the situation for Ukrainian forces is also extremely difficult. Today, almost all pro-Russian sources reported that the western and northwestern parts of Kupyansk have come under Russian control. The Ukrainian defense there is fragmented. Communication and coordination between units have collapsed. As a result, Ukrainian troops are being forced to retreat to the eastern bank of the Oskil River to regroup and possibly withdraw further toward Kupyansk-Uzlovyi. However, the key issue now is that Russian troops control the main supply routes and logistics lines. This means Ukrainian forces cannot bring equipment or ammunition to the front line. As we have discussed in previous reports, anything that enters the strike zone does not come back out. Recent video footage clearly shows what happens when Ukrainian units attempt to move reinforcements toward the contact line. The moment a vehicle appears in open terrain, it is instantly targeted by Russian FPV drones. In one clip, at least 3 consecutive drone strikes hit a single armored vehicle. Thus, the Kupyansk sector remains extremely challenging for Ukraine, and judging by current developments, the Ukrainian command has no clear plan to stabilize the situation. Now, let's move to off-front, political developments, which directly influence the battlefield context. Over the past 24 hours, a major statement was made by US President Donald Trump. He announced that he had made a decision regarding the potential delivery of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. His exact words were, "I have indeed made the decision to supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. But first, I want to make sure they understand what they're going to do with them and how they'll be used." Although Trump did not specify the details, the overall message makes it clear. He does not oppose the transfer and is likely to approve the delivery. However, it's important to understand that this move by Washington is not a sign of Ukrainian success on the battlefield. On the contrary, it reflects the critical nature of the situation for Kyiv. Western nations are now searching for ways to slow down the Russian advance, or at least force Moscow to negotiate. But judging by current developments, Russia shows no intention of stopping, as its forces continue to advance across multiple sectors of the front. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is once again facing serious problems. No sooner had the scandal surrounding her alleged involvement in the misuse of funds allocated for COVID vaccine purchases died down, than the European Parliament announced not one but 2 motions of no confidence against her. One put forward by the right-wing Patriots Party and the other by left-wing factions. Madam President, this time both the right and the left wings of the European Parliament are demanding your resignation. Your tenure has become a symbol of arrogance, chaos, and decisions made behind closed doors over the heads of citizens, all in pursuit of your dictatorial ambitions. You are pushing us into a war between Ukraine and Russia. Maybe for you, war is just a way to cover up your own corruption scandals? But why should our husbands, our sons, and our brothers fight and die for your interests? These words were delivered passionately from the parliament floor by Polish MEP Ewa Zajączkowska-Hernik. She continued, "Instead of doing everything possible to achieve peace, you insist on sending more weapons and imposing more sanctions. Instead of protecting our borders, you're forcing on us a disastrous migration deal. Through the so-called Green Deal and poorly negotiated trade agreements, you have weakened Europe's competitiveness, leaving families, farmers and small businesses to fend for themselves. And now, by fast-tracking Ukraine's EU accession, you are endangering both the security and the economy of the entire Union. In response, Ursula von der Leyen dismissed her critics as friends of Putin and called for unity in the face of what she describes as a growing threat from Russia. The world is in its most unstable and dangerous state in decades. Europe is being threatened from the east and faces major challenges from within, she declared. Von der Leyen claimed that Russia is deliberately trying to sow division inside the EU, allegedly by sending drones over European airspace and accusing Brussels of fueling the war in Ukraine. This is the oldest trick in the book: to spread discord, disinformation, and find a scapegoat. The goal is to turn Europeans against each other, to weaken our resilience and determination. We cannot afford to fall into this trap, she said, making it clear that she has no intention of stepping down. And what do you think about this situation? Share your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for all our upcoming updates.